generate an additional amp. There is sufficient power to make that happen for all of BC. If you all buy electric cars, we will not need subsidy.
Hi there, my name is Dave Cuddy, and I'm a student in the Master of Global Management program at Royal Roads. I want to thank the last speaker for leading into this great subject about alternative energy sources, because that was along the lines of what I was going to ask about too. So one thing that we've been learning about are some amazing new technologies out there. And so from what I understand, there's a lot of evidence that shows that by 2050, we don't need to have any fossil fuels at all, perhaps sooner than that, but that's the reasonable estimate, and that we would actually have technology such as like a space elevator that Canada just patented this year that would be able to put solar technology in space the size of a football field, like multiple football fields, that would transmit energy via the internet down to all of us. So that would actually render the economy that we know today completely useless, because we are based on energy and fossil fuels, because it would be almost free to get energy like that. Worldwide, I should say, too. So one of the things that comes to mind is we often think that there's fear that's coming from the whole terrorist threat to us, but I feel like there's a real fear of the oil and gas industry, of how are they going to move into this sustainable revolution? How are they going to move into a sustainable revolution? And the thing that's able to stop it right now, otherwise it'd be inevitable, is deception. It's the only thing that can stop it. So the more people that they can deceive, then they can stop this sustainability revolution. So how is it that we can help show this compassion towards these oil and gas workers, to all the people that have tons of money invested in oil that are going to lose everything when it all bottoms out? So I'm just sort of a question of how do you propose some strategy to deal with that? Because I feel like there is a real fear there of that, from that other side, and the need for compassion for them too. Yeah, thanks.
I'll take a quick crack at it, and then I won't be down on track about it. You're absolutely right. Fossil fuel industry is on its way out. 2014 was the first year globally where investment globally in renewables outpaced investment in fossil fuels. 2015 was the second year when it happened, and by a wider margin. If our news media, I sometimes worry about it, was Rafe Mayer who brought to my attention an actual contract between Post Media and the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, that in the national interest, Post Media's 42 daily papers across Canada would promote fossil fuels in their coverage because it's part of Canada's national interest. That might explain why I didn't read in very many Canadian papers that about 3 weeks ago, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia announced that by 2030, Saudi Arabia will cease to be dependent on oil. And I also read, so Globe and Mail isn't a Post Media paper, the Globe and Mail business pages last week reported that Total is one of the big global fossil fuel companies, is making sure that it is tracking its unburnable carbon and avoiding those assets that will become stranded assets because we simply will not allow that carbon to be burned. So it's not just a discourse that goes on in rooms like this and among environmental groups that the world is going off fossil fuels. Mark Carney, now Governor of the Bank of England, talks about it very clearly, that there is unburnable carbon, and he talks about it as the carbon bubble. That means that a lot of large multinational oil companies must have more transparency about whether they are overvalued because they count the value of their access to known reserves of fossil fuels, which will never be allowed to be burned. So a lot of fossil fuel companies are beginning to realize they better be energy companies with big renewable energy divisions, or they'll go out of business.
There was a Saudi oil minister who famously said, "The Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones."
A number of oil and gas workers in Alberta have proposed to the provincial government that they be employed in the cleanup. There is more than $30 billion worth of liability in the form of unreclaimed, abandoned, orphaned wells that are all leaking. They all need to be plugged properly, and they need to be monitored on an annual basis. And this would be a fantastic opportunity to employ people in the patch, as well as the geothermal industry, which is all about drilling, would also be a prime area to employ oil and gas people.
Your name?
Vicky Husband. I actually live on the Sandwich Peninsula. It's just the rocky part, the highlands. But we are on Sandwich Inlet as well. And I've lived up there for 50 years and born in Victoria. So I'm a local. And I want to thank the panel and everybody else. I've got a slightly different tack because electricity has been mentioned and Site C has been mentioned. And I think we have to look at the whole picture. And somebody, I was sitting with, wondered where Lena Island was, and I wanted to let everybody know, and Flora Bank, it's off Prince Rupert, and that's where Patronus wants to go, and it's a very important habitat for young salmon, and critical for the Skeena River. And that's why Lac Melange and others are strongly opposing this, as other First Nations are, and people in the area. But Site C is not mentioned enough. And I think people should be aware, when we're talking about electricity, we don't want our electricity prices to keep going up. They're going up, BC Hydro estimates they're going up 28%. Most people have seen it in their bills. Well, if we finish Site C and don't stop it, they're probably going to double. Because we can't sell that Site C power at the cost of production. It's probably 2/3 higher than the going rate today. We don't need that power. We never did. It didn't go through the BC Utilities Commission. It would create a reservoir from Victoria almost to Nanaimo, just to get an idea. This is a most important river that goes west to east. The Peace, very rich habitat, very important to First Nations, very important for agriculture, all of these things. It's another incredible boondoggle, and I think people have to realize, even if you only care about your electricity rates, you don't want it. And it's pushing all the alternative energy producers out of the province. So I think it's really important to put that as part of the picture. And I think we also have to stand together on that, but stand together to support the people in the northeast of British Columbia, especially First Nations, who are fighting the fracking, which is destroying everything. You wonder about the moose and the caribou populations. Well, just have a look. And the earthquakes and what is happening. We can't just look at Steelhead. We have to stop that. We have to stop the one in Howe Sound as well, and we have to stop many others. But we have to stop fracking. This is not good for our climate, for us, for everything. I think most of what I want to say is that, yes, let's stand together. We in the room can start. We're going to have to play harder ball with this government. We have to be much more outspoken. And I had a good talk with quite a well-known journalist yesterday about it, and he said, we've got to fight. Because we're being told lies, and a lot of the people do not realize that they're being told such lies. Why haven't they asked questions about LNG and all the promises? You know, and our forests are being destroyed at an unsustainable rate with no return to the public. Lowest stumpage rates in the world. Oh, that's an exaggeration, but who knows? But they're very low, you know, from $1, 27 cents a cubic meter, $1.35 a cubic meter. This is rock bottom rates, and we're destroying the last of what we have of the old growth. So this is a government that's totally corrupt, and we need to move forward. And we're going to stop Steelhead LNG. That's a no-brainer. And let's move forward on the bigger picture. Thank you.
as the moderator, I have a confession. I just looked at the end time for this meeting, and it was 10 minutes ago. So I'm going to suggest that we take the last 3 questions at the mic. And, oh, you have a question down there, Steve? Okay, so we'll take the last 4 questions, and I don't know if the panel won't mind, and I apologize to questioners. If we take them all as a group, and I ask the panelists to make notes on the ones they think they want to answer, that we can do a wrap-up where we try to answer all of your questions. I know we have to be out of this room, and I also don't want you to miss the chance to stop at the Tanner's book table because they've been very wonderful to come sit up here. So I apologize, and I'll ask the 3 ladies at the mic and the gentleman at the back, and that'll be our final 4 questions, and then the answers will come.
Hi, my name is Pam Tobin, and I live on the Saanich Inlet. So this project would not be in my backyard, it would be in my front yard. And I strongly object to it for all the reasons that everybody has presented, the environmental, the traditional native territories, the economic, the social, the recreational impact. I'd like to take aim in a slightly different force, and that is the company that is behind Steelhead LNG, which is Williams. And I attended a meeting earlier in the spring of an organization called PROW, which it's got a weird acronym, but it's about development on the waterfront. And there were 4 people from LNG there who we were allowed to submit questions to, and then they would answer the questions, but we weren't allowed to say anything. And so I appreciate this opportunity where you can understand our thoughts and our feelings. My point is that I did some internet investigations, which we all can easily do, about Williams, which was the company that was partnered with LNG in their brochure that they presented. Williams' safety and compliance record is absolutely abysmal. They have been charged and fined for all kinds of environmental degradation, fires, leaks, explosions, deaths, failure to comply with their own regulations, failure to comply with federal and state regulations. The list goes on. The worst one is falsification of data, which means we cannot trust this company. We cannot allow our government to shake hands with the devil, because that's what we do.
Hello, my name is Dorothy Field. I live in Victoria, but I spent 5 years of my life fighting the Bamberton project in the 90s. It was nothing compared to this, but we won, and I believe we will win on this one. But my question is, because I have so little faith in the current government, and I don't have a huge amount of faith in what the NDP will do should they form the next government, and given that Trudeau has promised a new relationship with First Nations, and the Site C and the Saanich Inlet are all treaty issues, any thoughts on strategy for pushing the federal government to step in and do what they have to do? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shimama. I've been fighting the Shawnigan toxic dump for 4 years now, and I switched over to LNG because I met Owen, and that just kind of set me off. My thing is, I want everyone to know that Steelhead LNG has an office in Mill Bay in the Tim Hortons Mall. Now, this office is currently got no signage. It's been there since November. They have no signage. They recently frosted their glass because I went up and did a video in front of their office saying, "This is Steelhead LNG. Please come and talk to them," because this is part of their public process. If people don't come and talk to them and say, "We don't want this," they think it's a thumbs up. So the thing is we all have to go and say, "We don't want this." So what we've been doing is, it's not vandalism. I use chalk, and I write things on their sidewalk and in the parking lot, and I use sticky notes, and I ask them questions, and I stick sticky notes to the window. And then they have to answer my sticky notes either by a phone call or an email. So I gotta say that on Tuesday morning, before I came to the LNG meeting here, I got a personal phone call from the RCMP, from Sydney, North Saanich, asking me that what I was planning, and they just wanted to touch base with me to see what I was planning on doing because they knew I was coming to this meeting. So Steelhead apparently was concerned for public safety. So I don't know how scared they are of sticky notes and chalk, but I left them in my car.
we've got, maybe.
Yeah.
Now, I've lived on the Sandwich Peninsula and around Victoria for nearly 70 years, and 30 of them in North Sandwich. My background is marine, and one of the things I find completely astonishing is the idea of routing these LNG tankers through a busy ferry area from Harris Straits into the Sandwich Inlet, with more ferries, I think, than almost any other terminal around here. And these are restricted waters to begin with. The main key feature of this whole effort seems to be energy, and I'm glad that a few people have brought up alternative energies as a key feature. What I do find somewhat astonishing is that we have a provincial government who really seems to be acting as a salesperson for overseas business. About 50 years ago, I did raise the question, what is the purpose of government? And I really didn't get very many answers. Essentially, the BC government was on the right track, I think, with its buses for BC Transit using hydrogen, but now they're selling them off, all 20 of them. The main problem was they were having to buy the hydrogen from Quebec and had it trucked in once a month, I think once a week now. But alternative energies really seem to be the answer. We are going to have to get off our carbon-based thinking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're going to try to just go from Andrew to Chief Tom to Owen, and I'll close with any part of those wonderful last 4 comments. I'm so tempted to dive deep into their phobia about chalk, but Andrew, you go first.
Well, it's amazing what you can do with sticky notes and chalk. I would just encourage all of you, this is both your front yard and your backyard, to continue this fight and to make it a larger fight. This is a fight not just about a corporation that wants to do something very bad, very cheap, very wasteful, very dangerous in your front yard. But it's also about a government that thinks it's okay to perform this way. And this is really a crisis in democracy for this province. And you've been given an opportunity to shine a bright light on this. Do so.
Firstly, I would like to thank the young lady who brought up Shawnigan, and we had an event in Startup on Sunday, and I just want to pass along not only my appreciation, but the appreciation of Grand Chief Stuart Phillip of Union of BC Indian Chiefs, who very clearly said, you know, if it wasn't for our women who were up there fighting for our waters, where would we be? And absolutely, you know, it was our women who were up there who were fighting with the truck drivers, and I want to thank you personally as well. Thank you. And thank you to the men who were there as well. The question of how do we get organized here in BC, and I really like that idea. When Grand Chief came to the community, he said, and I really like his idea as well, is we need to get organized before the next election, before May. We need to get organized, not just before, but we need to start now. And we need to get organized now, and we need to, so, you know, go back to your constituencies, be involved. And what I told my community about when they questioned, what do we do with this LNG? I told them, we need to get organized on the community level. What are we going to do? How are we going to get our membership involved? Because they need to be involved. And I always say this to our youth, when something like this is proposed, or we look at the desecration on Grace Island, and forgive me, but I always tell our youth, you need to feel pissed off every time something like this is proposed, or you feel pissed on, because either way, you need to feel angry whenever something like this happens. So we need to get organized on the community level. We need to get organized on the political level. Who are we going to put pressure on? And what I've said to my community is we need to get organized on a legal strategy also. So we need to, and I said it's not doing one or the other. I said all of them have to be going full force. I said because they have money and lots of money that they're putting towards a strategy, how they can be successful. They don't stop, they don't quit. They're funding their dreams, and we have to have that same mentality. Is they're not taking a break on this, neither should we. And I think so. I think moving forward, and it was a suggestion of Grand Chief that maybe let's be in touch with everyone who's fighting the same battle of LNG and oil, and let's get organized ourselves amongst First Nations. So I really appreciate that comment as well, and certainly we'll be extending an invitation, and I think a rally to the legislature would be a great idea. Committed to holding more rallies, more protests, and if that means CSIS and RCMP are going to be watching and spying on Sarnia, because the federal government has in the past spied on us, and they've admitted it that they've spied on Sarnia. So it's nothing new to us. I'm fine with them looking at my emails, but for me, I am committed to making every possible way known that we are opposed to this. We are not going to give up on this fight. We are going to do it